Okay guys, so welcome back to our channel Independent Trending. Now we are in the program of student exchange of Bayangkara Jakarta University Indonesia and then University of Mindanao Philippines. Now we have Christine Joy Balo-Balo as a student, accounting student actually from University of Mindanao. She's going to present the concept of corporate governance, but don't forget we are in the course of internal audit. So Christine Joy Balo-Balo, the time is yours.
Mere good governance is not good enough. It has to be pro-people and proactive. Good governance is putting people at the center of development process. Ladies and gentlemen, good day. I am Christine Joy Balo-Balo, a third-year exchange student from University of Mindanao College to Universitas Bayangkara Jakarta, Indonesia. This topic is corporate government implementation.
At this juncture, let us talk about the concept of governance. Poor governance practices generally indicate an organization that is not running efficiently. Bad governance tend to lead to poor record keeping, which in turn impacts the ability to make effective decisions and ultimately leads to an organization that is not just running at optimal efficiency. To prevent this, governance has been defined to structures and processes that are designed to ensure accountability, transparency, responsiveness, rule of law, stability, equity, and inclusiveness, empowerment, and broad-based participation. Governance also represents the norms, values, and rules of the game through which public affairs are managed in a manner that is transparent, participatory, inclusive, and responsive. Governance therefore can be subtle and may not be easily observable. In a broad sense, governance is about the culture and institutional environment in which citizens and stakeholders interact among themselves and participate in public affairs. It is more than the organ of the government. Furthermore, governance can be defined as power relationship, formal and informal processes of formulative policies and allocating resources, process of decision-making, and mechanism of holding government accountability. So let me talk about governance. Governance is always defined as the one that encompasses the system by which an organization is controlled and operates, and the mechanisms by which it and its people are held to account. Ethics, risk management, compliance, and administration are all elements of governance. These factors I'm speaking about that any sort of governance includes accountability, and it is important. You need to be accountable with your action and to have its transparency because you need to ensure that you inform your people. When you deliver a good governance, the people should know what the system is doing. That has to have transparency between the system and the people. To have a good governance, you need to be responsive towards the demand, towards the questions which people are raising. There has to be a rule of law, as governance have to uphold its integrity. The law should not depend and should not be used for any selfish purpose. Next concept of governance, there has to be a stability. Stability on your part, stability on the processes, and stability in the policy making. Because when you are stable, then obviously you are in the position to deliver the promises unto the people. Equity and inclusiveness is a must in the concept of good governance. No person should be deprived of life regardless of his skin, race, ethnicity, etc. because we are all equal. Empowerment is a great concept of governance as you should empower your people. Governance should make people comfortable and boost their confidence so that they will have a good back to the society. It talks about the broad participation to the stakeholders. This is all about the concept of governance.
Now let's proceed with the evolution of governance.
Governance came about as society developed from a nomadic existence to a more settled civilization. As civilizations evolved, it became necessary for societies within civilization to form hierarchy for work. The word governance appeared to have been used since the Middle Ages. When Coucher wrote the Canterbury Tales, the term was taken to mean wise and responsible. Historically, companies were both governed and controlled by owners who pursued their economic goals and were responsible for the action of their businesses. This is still the case in many organizations, especially small enterprises and family businesses. However, the roles and responsibilities expected of directors and owners is now different. Even if this is not widely understood, the modern company evolved when for the first time business enterprises were recognized as existing separately from their owners. Businesses that sought this separate existence were said to have incorporated and were referred to as corporations. They became, in the eyes of the law, quasi-people. With the emergence of incorporation came the concept of limited liability that allowed companies to grow and assume risks that a single individual would not be able to manage. With limited liability, owners could invest capital in a company knowing that, at worst, they would lose their investment but not their assets. Monastic communities and trade guilds were among the earliest beneficiaries of this concept of moving into business, secure in their knowledge that if their enterprise failed, they would not have to personally make restitution for any unpaid debts. Every day, we are inundated with news and issues competing for our attention. But sometimes we have to step back and take a look at the grand sweep of the past. Maybe then we can get a better idea about emerging our future. You see, humanity is on the cusp of another great transition, and we can learn a lot by taking a look at the ones we've already been through. The following is a visual overview of 9 stages in the evolution of governance. First up, the clans. Humans once lived in family groups as part of extended clans. These nomadic hunter-gatherers roamed around to find resources, but as resources became scarce, clans had to find a better way. Clans lived for almost 3 million years. Second one is kingdoms. With agriculture, people settled. These settlements coincided with the appearance of kings and taxation. Because the threat of invasion required swift, coordinated action, strong rulers emerged capable of defending resources against barbarians and competing kingdoms. They lived for 10,000 years. Third is the empires. Dominant kingdoms developed new tactics. To protect themselves and secure more resources, they expanded through conquest and the suppression of people in new territories. A hierarchy of governors managed the increasing complexity of the new empire. The thing about empires, they eventually fall. They live for 4,000 years. And for the democracies, there are limits to what can be achieved through coercion. A more participatory system appeared in which power was given to the people in the form of votes. Democracy diluted in the absolute power of authorities but introduced demagogy and tyranny of the majority. They live for 3,000 years. The fifth stage is the republic. As civilization expanded, more decision-making power had to be delegated, and politically power became increasingly subordinated with law. But delegating power, especially military power, risked the return of empire. Would the rule of law be strong enough to ward off the rule of man? The stage of republic ran for 2,000 years. The sixth stage is the constitutional republics. Combining features of democracy with features of a republic, nations began to separate powers and set out basic rights through charter, subordinating more political power to the rule of law. But times change and power ends up in auction. A constitutional republic is a state where the chief executive and representatives are elected, and the rules are set down in a written constitution. The head of state and other representatives are elected, but they do not have uncontrolled power. The constitutional republics reigned for 250 years. Now, it's look like we are pretty far into sixth stage. For the seventh one, the startup nations. In our future's first phase, rules will still be attached to a territory but will provide better governance options than otherwise available. As the world's complexity increases, we will see more entrepreneurial solutions, startup societies, or contract-based private cities, less dependent on monopoly state. The eighth stage in the evolution of governance is the cloud governance. Advanced technologies make it possible to make laws in the cloud. Here, good rules can exist independent of territory and may or may not involve coercive hierarchies. Thus, people will be able to select different forms of association from a menu of governance options without relocating. And for the last, the rules without rulers. The future of human organization is likely to mean most rules will neither attach to territory nor involve any power monopoly. Organizations are already pioneering hierarchy-free governance system. Might this work on a global scale? Such systems allow self-organization, mimicking the natural world. Imagine teams within teams changing with circumstances, solving big problems without violence.
And that's it about governance and its evolution. I hope you have learned something from me today. Knowledge is knowledge only when the students do at their best on what they learn. So we need to remember that governance is actually a broad sense that involves about culture, institutional alignment, and as well as all those citizens and stakeholders which are very important part of this discourse. Once again, I am Christine Joy Balubalo, a third-year exchange student from University of Mindanao Tagum College to Universitas Bayangkara Jakarta Raya, Indonesia. Wishing you all to be safe and healthy. Maraming salamat po. Terima kasih.
Okay guys, so what do you think regarding her presentations, concept of corporate governance? As we know, corporate governance is quite important for shareholders, stakeholders, and also capital stock exchange. Yeah. So that wrap up the presentation of Christine. Thank you for watching. Stay on Independent Training.